Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical. Today I have got, instead of doing the standard Sunday where I read an article and interpret it as far as what it means for us, those of us in the Second Amendment community, today I want to talk about something that has just kind of been bothering me, and this has to do with the National Firearms Act and what we have to go to in order to own things that are perfectly normal, that are in widespread use, and they're not any more dangerous than any other normal, regulated, or regular, not specially regulated firearms. NFA items is what I'm talking about here. Before we get started, I want to thank every one of you that subscribed to the channel. We passed 1,000 subscribers a couple weeks ago, and the channel is growing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. So what I want to talk about today is how ridiculous the NFA is, the National Firearms Act. Now this is something that was put into place a long time ago now, but not nearly as long ago as far as the history of our country and how long that timeline is compared to when the Second Amendment was written. And why I think that, especially with the Bruin decision, why the NFA will eventually not be a thing anymore. At least I sure hope so. So I recently applied for a tax stamp in order to get a suppressor for my 300 blackout build. Because, in my opinion, there's a couple of points to 300 blackout. One is that you can have an AR-15 with a shorter barrel and a cartridge around that is optimized for a shorter barrel, complete powder burn. You're not, causing undue, or you're not weakening your terminal ballistics by having a shorter barrel like you do with a 5.56 AR-15. The second thing is that it suppresses really well. You can run subsonic ammunition and with a suppressor have an actually quiet firearm. Whereas suppressing something that is only supersonic, while it will make it quieter, won't necessarily make it quiet. Because you're still going to pass the sound barrier and create that supersonic crack. So that's kind of the whole point of 300 blackout. And having spent a bunch of time and a bunch of money building a 300 blackout AR, it's only logical to get a suppressor for it. What I think is ridiculous is what you have to go through in order to get a suppressor. I've done all the steps now. I've filled out the ATF paperwork for a Form 4. I've paid my $200 tax stamp, which in itself is ridiculous. And we'll get to that. And now the wait has started, and currently wait times are at about 7 months. So after building this thing, the whole point of which is to have a quiet home defense setup that is short, so I can maneuver it around the home if I need to, but also quiet so that if, and hopefully never have to, but if it ever had to be used indoors, that it wouldn't deafen myself and my family, wouldn't blow our eardrums out. That doesn't seem like too much to ask. But in order to have a firearm that won't blow our ears out if it ever had to be used in a home defense type of scenario, I have to now wait 7 months in order to get the suppressor for it. And I had to pay a tax stamp that caused the price of an already expensive suppressor to be $200 more. And this is why I think this is ridiculous. The National Firearms Act was created for a couple of reasons, and it was in response to the gangs at the time, and this was during the Prohibition era. And the $200 tax was meant to be extraordinarily unattainable for the average person, to make it so that they wouldn't get these things. And these things included short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, suppressors, and machine guns. And the thing is at that time, that, just like every gun law, didn't affect the criminals because either they weren't going to pay those frickin' tax stamps anyway and just saw off their barrels, or they were the ones that could actually afford the tax stamps. Now, because of inflation, since the time that the NFA was put into place, that $200 tax stamp that made it almost impossible for average people to be able to afford at the time that it was put into place is now a relatively affordable tax. $200 it's still a lot, but it's not unattainable for the average gun owner. And so it doesn't make it so that you can't get these things. But it's a big hassle to get them. It takes a long time, and it does cost you extra money where it shouldn't. And this is my reasoning. Silencers, suppressors, cans, whatever you want to call them, they don't make anything more dangerous. And for one, they don't make anything silent. It's not like the movies where all of a sudden you become this hitman sniper if you have a silencer. It's not like that at all. And they're not used in any significant amount of crime. In fact, they're mostly owned by law-abiding, gun-owning enthusiasts who, because we shoot a lot, want to not damage our hearing. That doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. In fact, to me, that sounds like a safety device. And in fact, in a lot of countries in Europe, they're actually required. You can't have a firearm or shoot a firearm without a suppressor. So why is that such a regulated, highly regulated item in the good old United States of America, where we have some of the best gun laws, meaning the least, in the world? Our country was founded on, the Second Amendment is part of our Constitution. It gives us the right to keep and bear arms, but not the right to make our arms not so loud. I don't see what is extremely dangerous or abnormal about these things. And what about the common use thing? Suppressors have become something that is in common use these days. And so common use things are not supposed to be heavily regulated, more so than regular firearms. Now, the other thing to me is short-barreled rifles. Now, why is a short-barreled rifle something that is more heavily regulated? To me, I don't see the point in it. Now, this is an 11.5-inch barrel in this AR-15. This is not something that you can conceal. This isn't going in a holster underneath my shirt the way a concealed carry pistol would. It is, and that was kind of the whole point of the short-barreled rifle, short-barreled shotgun regulation, was that it was something that apparently they thought that these guys could hide under a trench coat or something. But that's not why people these days are using short-barreled firearms. The whole point is just to have something that's more easily maneuverable. And especially in something like 300 Blackout or 9mm, which doesn't need a lot of barrel length in order to burn all the powder and reach a velocity in which it has decent terminal ballistics, a shorter barrel is better. And there is no reason for this arbitrary 16-inch barrel rule. It's absolutely ridiculous that in order to have a shorter barrel, you have to pay an extra $200. Somehow paying $200 all of a sudden makes it not dangerous. Whereas if you don't pay the $200, it's more dangerous than a 16-inch barrel. Really, when it comes to something like this is 5.56 chambered. This is also chambered in 5.56. This one with the 16-inch barrel actually gets higher velocity out of the round than this 11.5-inch barrel does, making it technically more deadly to have a longer barrel, not a shorter barrel. So now, because of this, the firearms industry is great at finding ways to be in compliance with the laws, but still to an extent get what we want. So, the short barrel rifle thing, a lot of people do SBR their things because stocks are much better than braces, but we do have pistol braces for now. They're trying to change that because they believe that, people are using pistol braces in order to make short barreled rifles that aren't registered under the National Firearms Act. But who cares? The only people that are doing this are law-abiding gun owners. These are not things that are used in any significant amount of crime. The guns that are used in crime are high points, are cheap guns that people are getting illegally, for the most part, in highly populated city areas, urban areas. It's not firearm enthusiasts that just want a certain, their firearms set up a certain way. I like shorter barrels. I only have one AR-15 with a 16-inch barrel, and I have an AK with a 16-inch barrel. All the rest of mine I've built with shorter barrels, and the shorter barrels just make them easier to handle. That's really all there is to it. Now, if I want to reach out to a longer distance, yeah, I go with something with a longer barrel. That's why I've got a magnified optic on my 16-inch AR, and why I just have 1X red dots on my shorter barreled ones. There are certain configurations that are better for certain things, for certain uses. And that's kind of the whole point of building ARs, of buying ARs in certain configurations. And the vast majority of us are not committing any crimes. But in order to have these things, and believe me, these pistol braces are going the way of short-barreled rifles here soon. In December, which is coming up very soon, they want to start regulating pistol braces the same as short-barreled rifles, which is just another absolutely ridiculous thing when these have been completely legal to purchase and use for a decade now, and there's between 10 and 40 million of them out in use. To me, that passes as common use. So why is this something that they're looking at all of a sudden regulating? Well, I can tell you why. It's because of the Biden administration and what they have done to weaponize the ATF against law-abiding gun owners, because for the most part, gun owners don't vote for people like Joe Biden. Most of us don't vote that way. It's just a fact. Not to get too political, but I will never vote for a Democrat. And the reason why, one of the many reasons why, is because of their stance on firearms. And for the Biden administration to have weaponized the ATF against law-abiding citizens, it just shows, it's a political move is what it is. And it's just, the whole thing is just ridiculous to me. And tell me if you think the same thing. Why all of a sudden are these things that they consider more dangerous and highly abnormal, such as suppressors and short-barreled rifles, why are they so dangerous until you pay a $200 tax and get your name put on a list, on a registry? All of a sudden, then it's not dangerous anymore? That doesn't seem right to me. And so this video is kind of just a rant. The reason I held this up is because the article that this week's video is going to be about is about the Biden administration being sued because of the way they've weaponized the ATF in this article against FFLs. But they've also weaponized the ATF against all of us. And now the NFA has been around long before the Biden administration, but the fact that they're trying to use it now to regulate things that weren't previously regulated, it's a scary thing. And we need to make sure that we all get out and vote, and we need to vote these people out of office. And we need to do whatever we can. We need to support organizations like the Gun Owners of America, the Firearms Policy Coalition, people that are actively fighting against these ridiculous rules. And the good thing, what I see as the writing on the wall, And I've done other videos about this since the Bruin decision, the New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. Since that ruling, lots of gun laws have been shown to be unconstitutional. And I believe that the NFA, the entire NFA and everything that it does will eventually be, deemed unconstitutional as well. It's just a matter of time and a matter of the right case getting up to the Supreme Court. But I don't want to be that test case. I'm sure you guys don't want to either. And so what do we have to do? They're going to try to make these pistol braces regulated items soon. And they want to give us this amnesty registration period. So what do you do in that case? Do you take the amnesty registration so that you might not have to pay the $200 fine? But then, like in my case, all of a sudden you have 3 previously non-regulated weapons that were not on any kind of list or registry registered with the ATF as abnormal and highly dangerous, which they're not. Or you send them the pictures of your weapons and they tell you that they don't, that they don't get amnesty registration and that you do have to pay the $200 tax because they believe these are short-barreled rifles, not AR pistols. You know what I mean? I spent good money on these braces. They're not cheap. And I'm sure a lot of you have spent good money on these things too. And a lot of you have spent good money on suppressors and then had to pay an extra $200 in order to get it and wait between 6 months and a year just to take possession of something that you've already paid for and paid extra for. I just think that the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. And that's why instead of reading an article this Sunday, I just wanted to talk about the NFA, about the ATF under the Biden administration and what is going on. And I really hope that eventually this all goes away. And I believe that it eventually will. But it's not going to happen right away. And it's why I did do what I had to do in order to get a suppressor for my home defense 300 blackout build. And we'll find out what we have to do come December for our pistol braces. But the whole thing to me is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that they think that a pistol brace somehow makes this or this or this more dangerous than it would be without a pistol brace, when really all it does is make it more easy to be accurate and to control it, is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that they think that making your firearm not nearly as loud somehow makes it more dangerous is absolutely ridiculous. So I want to know what you guys have to think about this. Please leave me comments. I always find your comments to be very interesting, and I enjoy reading them, and I reply to every single one of them. Please subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and your family. We need to get this kind of message around. We need to put a stop to this kind of stuff. And please please leave me a comment. I want to know what you guys have to think. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.